No, we don't want to do the joke again. So I think that was just an ad lib to kill some time. All right, folks, welcome to the Town of Mount Pleasant Planning Board meeting. Thank you for coming out on this hot night. Planning Board meeting regularly scheduled for July 15th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. Couple of notes. We originally had the Toll Brothers application scheduled for tonight. We moved it to next week because of the great interest in the application, so that'll be next Monday. And we want to make sure we gave everybody enough time to have their comments and submit them and all of that.
It's not.
The 29th, excuse me. Good thing people are here to help me. So it's the 29th. Thank you. Also, on tonight's agenda, item number 3, which is proposed Brighton Avenue, Bradhurst Avenue development of vacant parcel to construct a 3,000 square foot landscape supply and equipment storage barn. That application was adjourned by the applicant. So what does that mean? That means they're doing something. I'm not sure exactly what they're working on. They're working on something, probably. So, but they will most likely come back to us at a future date. When it does come back, we will make sure that everybody knows when it is. The date on the sign outside of the property is updated, and it's updated on our agenda. So, and I think, Carolyn, you'll probably reach out to some of the key people on that. So everybody will know, because this planning board does not function without the public. So we will make sure everybody knows when that is. So if you're here for either Toll Brothers or item number 3, they're not tonight. Okay? So first up, business items. 6 Soul River Road, acceptance of resolution of approval for site plan application SP 23-08, proposed addition and renovation to an existing restaurant so to accommodate a new restaurant with a special event space. Second floor addition is proposed above the existing main building, footprint for 3 offices, a storage room, and half baths. New accessory structures for pergola, tiki bar, changing room with bathroom SBL 116.7-1-15 Zone C GC, Lasete Realty LLC. I probably didn't say that correct, but I think you know the gist. Okay, so any questions or comments from board members?
Mr. Chairman, there is a typo in the negative declaration that Walter picked up. Item number 4, speaking of the water demand, it reads approximately 7,460 gallons per day, which is less than the 7,000 gallons per day. It's supposed to read similar to the 7,000 gallons per day.
Okay. And we did, just so the public knows, we did add an item to this resolution and all resolutions moving forward to remove the signs, which are great because it tells the public that they're there, but we want them down after the job is done and these public hearings done. So we're putting in there to all the applicants, you must remove the sign within 10 days of the public hearing to clean up the visual aspect of the community. Because we do see some of them out there still from previous months. So with that being said, I'll ask one more time, any final comments, questions, or concerns from board members? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, let the record show the board doesn't have any additional comments, so we have this resolution in front of us.
2 resolutions, neg deck and site plan.
2 resolutions, neg deck and a site plan. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve.
Motion from JD.
Second.
Second from John. Walter.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Okay, so that was the neg deck?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, the second up was the site plan. We have a site plan. Any motions from the board on that?
Motion to approve the site plan.
JD.
Second.
Second from Eileen. Walter. John.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
And JD.
Aye.
Okay, that was an easy one. Okay, so next up is a public hearing. So what does that mean? I always like to explain what a public hearing is. It's different than a business item meeting. What a public hearing is we've developed an application to be ready for the public to come to us, bring their thoughts, concerns, they like or dislike, whatever it may be. That's what we're here for. So they've spent a great deal of time, and this one has spent a lot of time preparing it for the public to speak. My ask of the applicant is, we've seen this, so you're here addressing the public, so we'll make sure we're addressing the public, and but everything comes to the board, as you know. So thank you very much.
Good evening all. My name is Rich Cordone with JMC. Here tonight on behalf of Mr. And Mrs. Peter Humphreys. We are here tonight, as the chairman has discussed, seeking a subdivision approval. As you said, we've been before the board a number of times. Tonight is our public hearing. Would like to know if anybody has any questions on the application. Is anybody here for the
And
application?
let me just jump in. If anybody's here for this application, you're always welcome to come up to see and get closer. But if not, you don't have to, but it's always an option. Okay, I don't think there is. Oh, thank you. Let's pause for one moment. Okay, let's take a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved?
Motion from Eileen,
Second.
second from Walter. Walter?
Aye.
John? Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
Okay, that's done, thank you. Anything else?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay, questions or comments from board members?
No questions.
So, you're here in silence, and I think that's because this application has gone through a lot. They've gone through quite a bit to get to this point. And you're an example of going through a difficult process and putting up with us and the staff and getting to where you need to get. The good news is if this is approved tonight, it straightens out a situation that needed to be straightened out.
Agreed.
Forever, right? So with that being said, I hear no comments from board members. Let's hear any comments from the community. Anybody here for this application here tonight for 743 Bedford Road, 2-lot subdivision? Anybody here tonight for this application, 743, raise your hand. 743 Bedford Road, 2-lot subdivision from a 288.49 acre parcel. I'm sorry, I should have read this earlier. This is number one, 743 Bedford Road, 2-lot subdivision from a 288.49 acre parcel. The first lot is to be approximately 281.64 acres, and the second is 6.86 acre parcel, will have a single family dwelling constructed. Application is subdivision PSD 23-5, location 743 Bedford Road, Sleepy Hollow. Section plot number is 111.11-1-7, zone R40. Owner, people of the state of Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation, and applicant engineer, James C. Planning Engineering PLC. And I am going to ask you only because yeah, we did hear it ourselves at the board, but the public maybe didn't. Can you give like a 2-minute summary of
Okay.
where you are, how you got here, and what we're doing tonight, if you don't mind?
Okay. So, in the past, I don't remember exactly what year, the state of New York approached our clients about, they had previously owned this vacant meadow parcel.
And
State-
I'd like to keep interrupting. Can you just turn so people
Oh.
can see from there? We don't need to see it. We've seen it. So that people can see it.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. So in the past, the state of New York approached the applicants for this parcel of land over here, which was previously meadow. The agreement to take this piece of land was to, the state offered up this other piece of parcel of land, which is the exact same size as this parcel of land that they were interested in. As such, the land was quote-unquote subdivided by deed, where a written description of the property exchange was drafted and submitted, and New York State has adopted that, and in doing such, essentially the land was swapped between the two parcels. The applicants went through, and we went before the planning board, and when we went to get a building permit approval, the building department came up to the realization that the lot was not subdivided properly. As such, we're here tonight in an attempt to legalize this subdivision by deed, to turn it into a subdivision by map that's recognized by the town of Mount Pleasant and Westchester County Department of Land Records. So that's kind of what we're here for. We're here to legalize a land swap that was negotiated and taken place sometime in the past.
And one of your pivotal issues, which we straightened out, was the access to the property. Can you just, for the public, just summarize that?
That is correct. One of the pivotal issues was the building inspector had a little bit of an uncertainty as far as the reading of the code as to how access was going to be provided through the property. As such, the applicant was able to provide a number of deeds, maps, and additional information that was able to demonstrate to him that there was significant enough, not significant, I apologize, sufficient, yeah, there you go, thanks, Todd. Sufficient access to the site through the easements.
Okay, thank you. And I do that for a purpose, you know, it's, these public hearings I really hold very dear to my heart. They are here for the public, so we've heard this, so if anybody has now that you've heard the summary, any questions or comments on this particular application, now is the time to do it. If you'd like to comment, please raise your hand. If you have a number, you can speak. If you don't have a number, you can't speak. So if you like to have a moment to say something, please raise your hand. Okay, can we let the record show that nobody from the public has any public comment? Okay, so next up, we need to make a determination of what we do with this application. We have a public hearing that is open.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion from John,
Second.
second from JD. Walter,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
And I for me. And we have an application here sitting before us. It's one application for the subdivision itself, and that's it. There's nothing else, just one application.
Make a motion for Pat to draw up a resolution.
Motion from John,
Second.
second from Walter. Walter,
Aye.
John, Arlene,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
and I for me. Thank you. You've had a long road.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, next up is another public hearing. Proposed 146 Broadway, Thornwood, New York, demolition of existing structure, construction of a mixed-use building, ground floor retail, first and second floor apartments, 4 units in total. Application site plan PSP 23-001. Location is 146 Broadway, Hawthorne, New York. Section block lot number is 112.9-1-7. Zone HH Hamlet, Hawthorne Hamlet. Owner and applicant is 146 Broadway LLC. Engineer architect is Thomas Haynes Design Group. We do need to make a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
So moved.
Motion from Eileen,
Second.
second from JD. Walter,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Eileen,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
and I for me. Okay, the floor is yours, and again, you're speaking to the public.
Okay.
And
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Pivot that a little bit,
Sure.
so folks can see that.
So my name is Tom Haynes from Haynes Design Group, and I am presenting an application tonight for 146 Broadway. And we are, just a little bit of background on this. We had received variances on this property. This is part of the rezoning, which is the HH zone. We were, I believe, one of the first projects that actually presented a new structure, a new building in that zone. So our first step was to receive variances for lot coverage and for insufficient building frontage along Broadway. The reason we requested those variances was because the lot is only 50 foot wide.
So the two variances one more time.
So one is for the lot coverage,
Yeah.
which is, I think we're like 4% over what was permitted. And then the second variance was the actual building frontage along Broadway. So I believe it's supposed to be 75% coverage across the street front
Yep.
there, and we had less because we're required to have a 24-foot wide driveway access for ingress and egress. So because of just the 50-foot width, we were
And you have the
forced.
variances now. So
Correct. So we received the variances there. So we are proposing just a little over 600 square foot retail space at grade level. Parking would be behind the commercial portion at grade level, partially covered by the building up above. We're proposing 2 stories over grade level, which would consist of 4 apartments, 2 two-bedrooms, 2 one-bedrooms, as you mentioned, and there is going to be access to the rooftop with amenity space up there, so there'll be a rooftop terrace up there. We had received comments from the town engineer. We've addressed those. We have presented in front of you, I believe, a couple of times now. This might be our 3rd time now that we have the public hearing. And I could just take you through very, very briefly through the plan. So if we're looking at the floor plan here, ground floor here, so this would be Broadway up on the top. This is our retail portion, stair up to the top. This is the portion of parking that is covered by the building up above, which you can see it extends over here. So there's a total of 6 parking spaces on site, 4 of which are covered under here. Second floor, in the third floor, the same footprint. So we have the 1-bedroom unit faces the Broadway side of the property, and then the 2-bedroom unit faces the rear portion of the property. As we progress upward, again, so the second, what I'm calling the second floor on here, it's really the third floor of the building. Again, that's the same footprint of the perimeter of the apartment layouts on this, and then access elevator and roof stair at bulkhead up to the roof. So the front portion is for roof service access only, and then the rear would be the terrace of 900 square foot to provide open space.
So just to slow down for 1 second, so the first floor is going to be retail space, 600 square feet.
Correct.
2 floors above that will be two apartments on each floor.
Correct.
And then on the top will be the rooftop access as
Exactly.
proposed. Okay.
Correct. So just progressing along, we have front elevation here. So again, this is the section of storefront. You have a little loggia to walk underneath the building here on a little sidewalk area where we can enter into the side apartment, the elevator lobby area there. This is the side elevation, which is the right side of the building. We have the rear elevation on the left side of the building here. So currently it's just a 1-story structure here. The gas station's adjacent to it right here. So we're proposing to demolish that existing structure, propose our new building in that location. And then this is a rendering of what the building would look like with the adjacent properties. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions the public might have or the board might have.
Okay, let's just pause for a moment. Any questions or comments from board members? So Pat, just to be clear, we don't need any more variances.
Correct.
He's gotten all his variances, and then I do want to double click for a second into the parking conversation, just so the public knows. So can you explain, so in total of how many parking spots do you have for each apartment as well as the retail space?
Okay, so there's 6 total required parking spaces. So we are required 2 per dwelling unit, and then 2 for the commercial space.
1 per
No.
dwelling unit.
I'm sorry. No, 2, we have, hold on 1 second. We have 4 parking spaces, yes, 1 per dwelling unit for the 4-family, and then 2 for the grade level parking for the commercial portion of that.
And you
So
have
it's
two,
totaling 6.
And you have 2 2-bedroom apartments, right?
2 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms. So based on the revised zoning from the town, which is in that HH zone, it has a special exception. So it says anything up to 2-bedroom units only need 1 parking space per dwelling unit. So if we had 3 bedrooms, we would need an additional parking space.
Okay.
So we've kept compliant with that, and that's why we don't need a variance for the parking.
So just from how do you handle people in a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment have 2 cars?
We're just following the requirements of the zoning for the parking. So I don't know how the owner's going to handle that. I don't know, adjacent leases, maybe with the car wash after hours or something. I'm not sure what they're going to do if that does arise. But again, we're just following what is required in that zone for parking.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge because yeah, that's a challenge.
Well, there's really nowhere to street park there, so, I mean, properties I have, if I'm offering them a parking space and they have 2 cars, it's, there's no street parking for them, and, they would have to park, wherever they, but they're not parked, at least on that area, there's no way nobody's parking on the street there.
I think those people won't rent there if they have 2 cars and they only have 1
Yeah,
space.
and then they won't rent, and you get the people who want a car.
Any idea what you think the retail space will be?
I think they're talking about putting an office in there currently, so office space of some kind, yeah.
So the retail
And you said it's what, about 600 square feet?
600, yeah. And again, it was really a balancing act of, our coverage of the commercial space. We obviously have to bring the building all the way up to the front to comply with zoning on the setback requirements there too.
So up to 1,000 square feet is 2 parking spaces, right?
Correct.
So retail's 2. And where's your, so of the 2, one's handicapped?
Correct.
So it's really 1.
Again, this is just dictated in the zoning.
No,
so they don't- they don't
I know, but
differentiate
I'm
that.
just detailing it out, right? So it's really
Yeah.
1 parking spot plus a handicap spot for retail.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we're gonna ask one more time, board, any questions, comments? Okay. So, okay, we're here for a public hearing tonight. Anybody here for 146 Broadway, Thornwood, demolition of existing structure, blah, blah, blah. Please raise your hand. If you have a number, you can speak. If you don't have a number, you can't speak. So we have one person with a hand. Anybody else? Okay, so come on up. Let the record show one person raise their hand and come grab the mic and speak into the mic, and let's hear your name and all that for the record.
Jim Russell from Hawthorne. Aside of the fact that this is really a property developed for residential use that doesn't fit into the general character of an industrial area, it also seems to have some problems even with the new form-based zoning rules, as I don't see any discussion of outdoor amenity space, which is one of the things that's listed in the zoning guidelines. And I believe that this board is the secret lead agency on this. And I'd like to know if the applicant, in accordance with the rules here, submitted a report documenting whether the project complies with all findings of the secret generic environmental impact statement, such as the fact that you have a large parking lot on one side with a lot of cars will be coming in and out, parking there for the Union Building. You have a car wash, a lot of cars back and forth. You're going to have a lot of emissions. You have a major road coming by at the front there. So it has pollution aspects and traffic aspects and safety aspects. If you have some children there, are they going to be safe in an area? We have a car wash going most of the day and another parking lot with a lot of cars, and you have a frontage there onto Broadway, which is pretty busy in the morning. And if there are children that are going to school, are there, school buses coming in and out of there? Is that going to slow down the traffic even more? Those are some of the secret-related things that I would ask, and the amenity issues as well. And I would ask that, as you often do, to keep the comment period open after the meeting so that people watching at home can have a few days to send in their comments before you vote on approval.
So if you don't mind, let me summarize. So your question was, there's a couple things I want to make sure I heard. One of them was the secret process.
Right.
And so, Pat, help me out with this one. This obviously we went through, came to the findings.
That's correct. So if you chose to advance the application, we would draft the response to the seeker, and it would be a negative declaration in this case, and that material that you heard referenced would be incorporated into the document. So it would be prepared at your direction.
Yeah. And then the other thing I heard too was the children and the
Right,
the
that'd be
school
part
and-
of,
Right.
secret considerations too. In other words, there's
Yeah.
a likelihood that people will have children living in that area. It's not the most child-friendly area that I've seen.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
And there's safety
May I ask a
issues.
question?
Yeah.
So I'm just a little confused by the question. Are you saying that this fits in the area? 'Cause you
No,
referenced
actually, it
as
does not fit.
industrial.
It's one of the most obvious oddities, I think, to be in this particular area, which has, three gas stations, a car wash. There's no other residential buildings close by.
So,
This is mixed use, but it falls in the new zoning.
Yeah, it falls in the new zoning. It's sort of a flagship for the new zoning, which, I've had some disagreements with in the past.
And then you referenced the outdoor amenity space, but this one does have an outdoor amenity space.
It does? I didn't see it described or discussed.
He did.
Yes, he described it. It's a rooftop.
The rooftop.
The rooftop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how much a rooftop fits in with traditional
It's an
ideas
it's considered an
of
outdoor-
amenities, to have like a little
considered an outdoor amenity.
green space to play for if their kids there. Adults like to sit on some grass and.
To be quite frankly, honestly, what was there didn't fit in the area. Across the street, you have a new building. You have a chiropractor office building. You have another limousine business, you have gas station, you have car wash. I don't think the house went there, rather than this building, at least this is a commercial.
I don't think it was
kind of
a residential space, but I think it was used
I-
as a building for a
Probably
foundation
initially
for
was, but it
for
wasn't
playthings.
always.
I think it was changed. I mean,
Yeah.
those buildings gotta be there 20 years, except the one that, the construction company built across the street, but most of that area is commercial. I mean, that house was kind of almost like a sore thumb in that area. It didn't belong, you know, I could see them going towards the school, it belonged there, but right on 9A, or coming off of 9A, kind of really didn't go. And to put it
That's why I
commercial-
think a commercial or industrial use for it would fit in with that area. Just as a factory behind it that makes some types of tools, I think.
Yeah, but we get into opinion versus law, and the law that's in place before us today, right?
Right.
So if the owner at the end of the day has the right to do something, like everybody does, if anybody wants to knock down their house and build a new house, myself included you could do it, right? Within the letter of the law. The owner of that property has chosen to go through this process. What we do with that is what this board will determine, but we have to follow the laws before us as opposed to, more opinion-based decisions.
I understand that. And I guess that's why this particular case, this sort of flagship one, is this is requiring the full review process, I guess, in accordance. That's why we're going through these, like the zoning board variances and all, and it does require this report. I would think before approval, this secret report from the applicant. So that's why I think if it hasn't been received yet, these things could be reviewed to see, is there a lot of pollution emission from that area for people living there? If you have a car wash next door to you, is that going to, can you measure the pollution there? Can you measure in some way the traffic there? Is it appropriate if somebody's going to need a school bus to go to school in that area?
Is it our discretion?
So
No, now I
the
understand. I
pollution
didn't
generated,
understand before when you were
Right.
asking the question. So your concern is for residents of this new building?
Yes.
From pollution that's already on the street, not that this building would cause more pollution?
Right. Safety issues for residents there.
Right,
yeah, so your obligation is to address the impacts created by the proposed action.
right.
So whether there's a polluting source next door, that you take that into consideration, but your obligation is the proposed action.
Right, and there was a residential unit house there before.
But not even used as a
It wasn't-
residence.
Right, and now we're putting 2 bedrooms, how many bedrooms? are there?
4 apartments, 4 apartments.
4 apartments up there, and
1 retail.
I don't see the pollution, but again, a secret, I think we discussed this when it first came up, and I don't.
Yeah, and you will have a full assessment before you, and you can make your judgment when you have it before you. Like you always do,
Right.
right? The drafting of that document will give you that information, and you'll make your determination.
Did we get that from Tom? No, I'm saying, did we,
Oh, I think we originally seen information
Yeah.
from the very
Okay.
beginning, yeah, a year ago.
okay.
Mr. Russell, this is their third time before us, so I don't want you to think that we're just rushing through this. We've looked at it, they've altered the plan, we've made comments along the way, so that what's being presented to us now, theoretically, we're pretty satisfied with it. They've addressed our concerns. Any decision tonight would be only toward directing the preparation of the environmental documents that we would either adopt or not adopt at a subsequent meeting.
So the vote on approval of the application would wait until the approval of the secret document.
Yes.
And would that both be done at a open meeting?
Typically, they're at an open meeting on the same night, unless something surprising comes up.
Right. And then other residents would have an opportunity for a week or so to submit email or written comments to the board on
It
this
depends on
hearing.
whether the board closes the public hearing tonight or keeps it open.
And
I hope that you would.
And there's always a way to communicate to the board, right? Through Carolyn, to us. We've gotten your communications over the years, so we'll always hear it. So, but again, we have to follow the law and lean further away from opinion versus the law. This board has to make decisions based on the law that's provided to us by the upper board or the town board. And that's what we have in place before us tonight.
I understand.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you for
All right, thank you.
consideration.
Thank you. I am struggling though, and I know my latitude is not much, but I am struggling with the parking a little bit. And I know you can't speak too much to it, but it seems to be very light to have 6 parking spots for 1 retail and 4 apartments. And I don't know where these people are gonna park, because there's nowhere to park in the winter for sure. You can't park on a side street. You can't do anything. So I don't know, Pat, in this findings document that we're gonna put together, I think we need to double click into that somehow. Because that to me is gonna be a sticky wicket.
I think, if I may for a second, I think, part of this, the new zone is to sort of encourage more mass transportation for businesses and what have you, and I think that that's really what, what we're satisfying here. I think if it was a concern, I think that we would have more stringent
And
requirements.
it would be more palatable to me if it was in an area where there was parking in the street, but there's none. There's none over there. So if someone has a guest or somebody has a few people over, we're gonna have people walking.
Well, you keep in mind, if we're talking after hours, we have 2 available parking spaces.
I know, but
So you have those, and maybe one unit doesn't have a parking, maybe they don't have a car.
It's-
So, maybe there's an arrangement that's done with the owner.
so what's gonna happen, because I've walked into a business over there, and what I have done when that parking lot is filled, I go park behind the gas station on the corner, down on the other side, and I walk on that road. It's dangerous, because we're gonna put pedestrians on that roadway, which is something I'm struggling with.
How far of a distance is this to the train, you guys, is it walkable?
It is definitely walkable, yeah.
Do you know how many feet?
I don't.
I know for it to be in the zone, Pat, right, it has to be a certain amount of feet for walkability?
I mean, I don't know if it's,
It'll be less than half a mile.
I
Yeah.
don't know the distance, but it was within the walkable radius that established all that.
yeah, and I think that's why the zoning is what it is in that location for it. So, and like I said, I mean, I don't know, maybe if they have an arrangement still after hours with the adjacent properties too.
But those
Again,
arra-
that's up to the owner, but, I think that you said it, I think it was pretty important what you said before, is that leaning towards opinion, and I think that that's kind of
No,
what's happening here.
I know, and I'm struggling with that in my head, and I'm just showing you what I'm struggling with.
Understood.
And it's a difficult spot to be in, because I know it's gonna create problems. I know it's gonna create problems, because unless you rent to people who have no family or no friends, and nobody comes over, and there's no spouses, it's not gonna be a good situation.
I mean, for what it's worth, it's impossible to get another spot.
Well,
So there's nothing that could be done.
right.
If it was, we would have done it. So
No, I know,
yeah,
but-
I mean, we're only a 600 square foot retail to begin with. We
Right.
can't reduce that.
And we'll go back, I don't want to go back and forth with you, because obviously you know where I'm thinking, and I know what you're thinking, but it is a tight spot, and parking is definitely going to be difficult, but I also know the law that's in place, so I'm just expressing to you my
Understood.
concern, and put it on the record that I know that this could be a problem. Okay. So, any other comments or questions from board members?
Do we have to make a motion to close the public hearing today, or no?
So we did have a request from the public to, if we do close the public hearing, to extend the written comment period for 30 days.
I'll make that motion.
So,
I'll second that.
so it's a motion plus the written comment period for 30 days?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we have a motion from John and a second from JD. Walter?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we have to, Pat, help me out with this new process.
Do you want us to draft the negative
There's nothing
declaration?
different, right, okay,
And the resolutions? No.
right.
So we would make a motion for that contingent on any 30 days.
Further comments, subject to
Further
any
comments.
comments that are delivered in the 30-day period.
So-
So those resolutions would come to you in 31 days or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. So we have a motion that needs to be made, if someone
I
would like to
make a
make it.
motion that we direct the preparation of the negative declaration and approval resolution.
Second.
Eileen and JD. Walter?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Eileen?
Aye.
And JD?
Aye.
And I for me. Okay.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next up on the application, just so folks know, again, I'll say it again, number 3 is adjourned by the applicant. So next up is continuing applications. It is not a public hearing. I'll repeat, it's not a public hearing. This application is getting ready to bring it to the public hearing at some point in the future. It's item number 4, proposed New York City DEP KEC contract number 2, Eastview, contract number 2, tunnel shafts at Kensico excavation, Kensico East-1, contract number 3, KEC building Kensico East 3, application site plan PSP 24-02, location Walker Road, Valhalla, New York, section block numbers 116.16-1-2, zone OB2, owner and applicant New York City Department of Environmental Protection, engineer architect Ove Arup and partners Hazen and Sawyer.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this
Thank
application.
Thank you. Welcome. Just state your name and all that for the record when you're set up. So we're going to need to move this monitor a little bit so the board can see, because this is something we haven't seen yet. And the public can move up if they like to see it, but you try to make it so everybody can see if you can. JD is the pivotal point. Can you see? You can, all right.
Yeah, so this is, continuing.
Okay, and anybody who would like to hear it, of course, or see it, just come on up if you can't see from where you are.
He's doing a lot of back and forth. Is that okay?
Or if seen, or you're a DEP person, you've seen it 10,000 times, you don't want to see it anymore. So, okay. Just state your name and who you are for the record.
Good evening, Justin Rivellino. I'm with New York City DEP, Bureau of Engineering, Design, and Construction. And today we're going to talk about the Kensico Eastview Connection Contracts 2 and 3 for the Eastview site.
So, and then just tee up one thing, just grab the mic, because I do get feedback often from people that they can't hear people. So just speak right into the mic.
You got it. All right, so what we're going to cover today, like I mentioned, is just, we'll quickly go over the whole KEC program, the project overview, and highlight why there's 2 sites involved there, the sequence of the site plan applications and which one we're speaking about today and how that fits into our overall general sequence. We'll touch base on the contract scopes that are affected by this, Contract 2 and Contract 3 for the town that we're referring to here. And well, we have a summary of response to comments that we've received to date. We could review those as well. All right, so the KEC, Kensico Eastview Connection Project, covers 2 sites and it's connected by tunnel from Kensico Reservoir, which is Kensico right over here down the road. But today we're going to highlight the green box, the dashed green box, which is the Eastview site, and the 2 contracts that are affected there. Main purpose really is to just bring water from the Eastview site over to from the Kensico site over to Eastview, where our CatDel UV treatment facility is. So it's a new 2-mile tunnel, and it will connect these 2 sites. And like I mentioned, we will focus really on Eastview. Next slide. All right, so what does that exactly entail? What are the details? It's a 2-mile long deep rock tunnel. It's 27 feet in diameter. There's going to be 2 new shafts, one over at the Kensico site, one at the Eastview site. We'll have some supporting facilities, both at Kensico campus and the Eastview site. I'll touch on those facilities here today over at Eastview. And we will be working on subsurface, and we are working on subsurface utility easements with a 150-foot buffer, just to make sure we're really, keeping the tunnel safe and secure and there's no accidents in terms of any type of excavation. The KEC project is required under a Hillview consent decree. It's a federal decree, so we are required to get this project done by a certain date. And we have the EIS, the draft EIS was issued back in 2022. The final EIS was last year in August, and the statement of findings was a few weeks after that in August as well. All right, so this just kind of highlights some of the properties that are in the surrounding area and what we've noted to date for the Kensico site, the tunnel, and Eastview, and really highlights, what you saw before, satellite view. This is more of the property view, and kind of what we're affecting in the zone that we're looking at in terms of making sure we're, keeping in tabs with adjacent properties and making sure we're not causing any disturbances. All right, and like I said, the sequence of site plan applications, we are today talking about the green box, the one that's highlighted there, for Ken's East 1 and Ken's East 3, which we're calling Contract 2 and Contract 3 for this purpose. There will be another site plan application for Kensico for Contract 2, and then a Kensico application for Contract 3 as well. Those come later on. All right, here's a Gantt chart, which basically covers the work that we're highlighting here today. We're expecting to start late 2024. Really hoping that stays the schedule, and that will be for Contract 2. Contract 3 will then follow. That'll start in late 26. So you'll see 3 lines there that are highlighted. Those bottom 2 are both part of the same contract. Contract 2 will finish sometime in 2030, and Contract 3 will finish 2033 with work, and then start up and commissioning in 2034. All right, so just a couple things we'll talk about at the Eastview site. Site plan approval, the steep slopes application we'll highlight, as well as tree removals, wetland application. We'll highlight some of the rock blasting work that we're doing, and some of the variances. So what you see here is just an aerial view of the Eastview site. Definitely want to turn your attention to the dashed yellow line. That's where the shaft is going to go and where a lot of the tunnel work will take place. The upper left-hand corner is the existing proposed soil pile. That's where a lot of our staging is going to go, so we do need to get that soil pile out of there. And then on the right side, we have the proposed south access road. That's going to help us keep operations going, as well as not disturb the construction schedule as well. All right, so just some of the scope for Contract 2, what we're calling Ken's East 1, it's tunnel shafts and Kensico rock excavation. So a lot of activities going on here, but we definitely have them in certain stages. First and foremost is removal of that soil pile in the upper part of the screen there. That'll help us with the staging, because we do plan on storing muck there and then constantly getting the muck from the tunnel tracked out. There's going to be a lot of site preparation and staging over at Eastview. That's what Contract 2 will do. So that'll include construction of the south access road, like I've mentioned, a contractor and CM trailer complex, as well as the KEC tunnel and shaft 2C, which will have a tunnel boring machine assembly area, and we will lower it into the tunnel from there. Also, we'll be managing excavated materials, which includes on-site soil placement, water treatment facilities, temporary conveyor to get muck from the shaft over to the storage area, and storage removal of excavated material. And then, of course, we'll be discharging or dewatering to Mine Brook, but we will certainly keep within the confines of the permits there. All right, so steep slopes, it's really just the soil pile area and what's remaining. There's no natural landforms or geological features, so that's what we've noted here. And all in all, it's close to 9 acres, but like I mentioned, no natural landforms, so we have tracked that there in red. All right, so for tree removals, we want to bring your attention to the red dots. Those are the ones we'll be removing. Mostly in the soil pile area are the trees that will be affected. So out of over 3,500 trees, 140 of those will be removed. Like I said, mostly in the soil pile, some in the staging area on the bottom part of the screen, and then we're approximating 1 tree for the south access road. All right, and in terms of wetlands, just noting that this is town and Army Corps wetlands. There's no DEC delineated wetlands, and it's all temporary disturbances, around 100 square feet of wetland buffer disturbance, with 3 potential locations identified for an outfall. All and so a lot of colors going on there, but just kind of delineates buffer from actual wetlands that are running through the site. And the main highlight for disturbances here is that muck conveyor I was talking about. It's bringing excavated materials from the shaft over to the storage area, the muck storage area. So a little over 1,200 square feet of wetland crossing for the temporary conveyor, over 5,700 square feet for the wetland buffer disturbance of that conveyor and outfalls, 5,500 square feet disturbance of the temporary stormwater basin and outfall, and close to 28,000 square feet of buffer disturbance for the temporary stormwater basin and outfalls when we total it up. All right, so rock blasting, to get the shaft done. It's worth noting that rock blasting will really just be done for shaft work. The tunnel will be tunnel boring machine, so it'll be used for facilities over shallow bedrock, and during tunneling, blasting would be controlled and it would meet town code. We've reviewed that thoroughly and we certainly expect to comply. We'll have blast monitoring that'll be implemented as well. And we anticipate, in the most optimistic way, that we'll have a maximum of 3 blasts per day. Town and adjacent owners would certainly be notified ahead of time, and blasting would be performed with blast cover, such as using a mat and door to reduce noise, and we expect that could reduce 40 to 90% of the estimated level with a blast cover.
What percentage? 40
to 90?
40 to 90,
Yep.
okay.
All right, and the scope for contract 3, which will be coming on board while contract 2 is underway, so there will be some coordination going on there. There'll be construction of a new Eastview connection chamber. That'll be the facility over at this site. We do expect to have a variance that will be needed for that. So we'll certainly be looking to go to the zoning board to get that variance.
What's the variance for?
The height. So 40 feet's allowed. We are estimating this building to be about 46 feet. We'll have a construction road that goes along with that. There'll be removal of contractor and CM parking area. So this contract will start bringing us back to existing site conditions once all is said and done. Final post-construction stormwater measures, final site restoration and landscaping, and then it is the startup and commissioning contract as well for the whole KEC program. This is just a couple of views, renderings that we have of the Eastview connection chamber, what we expect it to look like once it's all said and done. We have received the final Public Design Commission approval for this structure, so they have taken a look at it.
And can that building be seen from where? From the roads, or can people see the building?
Yeah, you could probably see it from the campus, like you could see our CDUV facility.
Okay.
Like that. Landscaping plan is really just to bring things back to how they were. Complies with CDUV approval conditions with limited changes. We don't expect to deviate much there. Restore plant and soil pile area. Restore the plant temporary field office area. We're going to remove the industrial outfalls, restore all other outfalls, and then restore our wetlands disturbance. Like I said, that was all temporary, so we expect that to be fully restored. And then these are just the town comments that we've received and responded to. I could certainly go through each one if the board prefers. Happy to read them. Starting with the general comments. Will the existing soil stockpile be completely removed prior to activating the staging area? Or will soil removal occur concurrently with the use of the staging area? And our response is yes, the stockpile will be removed first at the beginning of contract 2. Like I've mentioned, we do need that area for the muck storage for the tunnel, and then we will fully restore it after contract 3. What will happen to the contractor overflow lot once the project is completed? Everything will be restored, so response was the contractor and the DEP CM field office facilities and parking areas will be demolished as part of contract 3 when the tunnel and shaft work and Eastview connection chamber construction is complete, so that parking lot will be restored. It's noted that the CM field office will provide trailer space for the entire KEC project, inclusive of the Kensico campus. So why are 8 trailers necessary at Kensico campus? It's a Kensico question, but it's okay. There will be DEP CM offices at both sites to support the project. So majority of staff will be housed at Eastview, but of course we do need some staff over at Kensico since there will be work going on there concurrently as well. And then last question on this slide, will there be an emergency response plan for any incident within the tunnel? And our local emergency service able to handle an emergency event or specialized emergency crews required to assist? Contractor will prepare an environmental health and safety plan that's always required, which will include emergency procedures. The contractor is also required to have a rescue team as part of the work crew when working in the shaft or tunnel. So local emergency services will not be expected to enter the tunnel or assist since that's a specialty operation.
So one more time on that, so with the local police fire, they're not going to be involved at all with the tunnel rescue. If there was a tunnel rescue, is that what I'm hearing?
No, we need a specialized team to get into the tunnel and be able to rescue workers if something were to
And who
happen.
is that specialized team?
I believe we contract that, or we tell the contractor they need to have someone ready to go and available should that event happen.
Okay.
There'll always be staff underground.
Right. Yeah, and then we'll have a emergency plan in place should something happen where that underground team will contact above ground teams to come and help with the effort.
Yeah, I think we probably should get a note to, especially the fire and ambulance departments.
They've been engaged. If there were an event, they would also respond to the site. It's just that the DEP would have the specialists that were there.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure they understand what
Yeah,
they're
they've been
undertaking.
engaged.
Right, so we,
Significant concern.
and we have evidence we've had communication with them. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So next slide with questions, traffic related. Traffic signal modifications and roadway striping mitigation efforts shall be in place prior to ramp up of the work. Roadway striping specific to Walker Road, roadway striping specific to Walker Road and contractor driveway will be submitted to Westchester County. It's a county road for approval. The mitigation of 3 intersections identified in our final EIS, which was issued last year, will be coordinated with DOT, the county, Town of Mount Pleasant, and Greenberg as appropriate, depending on the intersection. Those would be the entities we talk with. Traffic signal impacts require additional mitigation at signalized intersection of Grassland and Walker, Clearbrook Road. Acceptable level of service for the town is LOSC. The existing level of service is LOSC and remains a LOSD at mitigated site. Additional measures should be considered to reduce the delays at this intersection. So, our refinements to the signal time modifications could be explored with the town to address their traffic operation concerns, but clarification would be required regarding the exact traffic levels of service parameters. So certainly something we would look into. Is DOT aware of proposed mitigation and what is the status of the permit for this work? The plan for the mitigation work should be included in the plan sheets. So our final EIS assessed the crash data for the intersection of Hillside Avenue, Virginia Road. That's the most frequently reported crashes were rear-ended crashes along the westbound Virginia Road approach. However, as the construction-related traffic increase to this intersection is expected to be modest, less than 50 trip increment typically used to identify an intersection for traffic analysis, and construction-related trips are not expected to travel along the westbound approach. It was determined that KC project would not materially contribute to crashes at this intersection. Any mitigation efforts at this or other intersections will be once again coordinated with the appropriate agencies for approvals and our permits, DOT, county, and Greenberg. All right, continuing some traffic comments. The actual number of truck and vehicle trips shall be monitored during the project to verify that they do not exceed estimated levels that could subject the area to increased delays. So the analysis that we conducted, the anticipated number of daily trucks during the peak quarters for the KEC site was included in our final EIS. The numbers are there, and it represents the reasonable worst-case scenario. So vehicle trips outside the peak quarter would be lower, and we would not expect to exceed levels noted in our final EIS. Right. A total of 665,115 cubic yards of additional material will need to be removed. How many truck trips will be required to haul off this material? So our response is the contractor may utilize trucks depending on the cubic yardage ranging from 10 to 25 cubic yards. With the use of a 10 cubic yard truck, it's estimated that 70,200 trucks or 140,400 truck trips, when you consider trucks going there and back, will be required to haul off this material. So if the contractor utilizes 25 cubic yard capacity trucks, that estimated number would be 28,020 or 56,160 trips. Both estimates are within the estimates used in our final EIS.
Yeah, and we'll want to see the projected route that we're going to take these trucks through. So we don't have to go through it tonight, but we would want to see that in the public hearing especially.
Okay, just clarify where that material is going. So when UV plant was constructed and Mount DEP was created, that was all coming over here. That was filling in the aerator site.
Yep.
That hasn't happened. So some of it's still going to the aerator site, right?
We're not bringing anything from Eastview to Kensico.
Okay.
So we're taking everything off of Eastview and the contractor. We have it within our specifications. They need to bring it within a certain area. But that'll ultimately be their choice and we'd have to approve it. But at any given moment, that muck storage area we're estimating it to only contain about 100,000 cubic yards, and it'll just be a constant flow of trucks
Well, but
bringing
70,000
muck out there.
70,000 estimate, right? Trips back and forth.
Right, if you're using the,
10,
If they're using
Right.
25,000 cubic yards,
it'll be less, right?
10,000 cubic yards would be 158,000 trips.
Right. So
I can't do the math.
we had to, we had to think of the worst case scenario. If they're using small trucks, it's going to take a lot longer. But
Okay.
You keep saying muck. What is the muck?
muck's just excavated material from the tunnel, like
Dirt and
crushed
rocks.
rock and
Okay.
soil. Yeah.
The word conjures up something less.
Yeah, it's not the,
Okay.
it's the common word for it, but yeah, it's just simply crushed rock from the tunnel when we excavate. Our vehicle or equipment maintenance activities anticipated to occur within the staging area. Equipment maintenance will be required per the contractor's means and methods. That'll be within the specifications. A dedicated concrete truck washout will be provided as detailed in our SWIP, and the contractor may utilize the staging area located in the existing stockpile area for limited vehicle or equipment maintenance activities. So, we have that in our drawings. Once again, why it's kind of important for us to get that soil pile out of there early, because it is going to be a staging area for that contract. All right, so wetlands, natural resource questions. Has a wetland replacement plan been submitted to offset the disturbance or elimination of wetlands impacted? These wetlands are intended to be restored at the completion of the project, so that's the plan in place for there. Details of the construction of the conveyor to be determined by the contractor. However, it is likely that some columns will be located within the wetland buffer. The town's wetland consultant should review these impacts. So this is certainly something we've thought about. So we've noted it, and a wetland application has been included with the site plan application. And includes the entire wetland and buffer area crossed by the conveyor for determination of potential impacts. But worth noting that actual construction of these columns will occur in a smaller area and will not occur within the wetland itself. We were certainly aware of that when we were coming up with this. So conveyor supports will be designed to span no less than 80 feet across Mine Brook and associated wetlands. Right. And for noise, construction activity noise level limits are related to zoning districts, indicate the location of noise monitoring equipment on the plans. So noise monitoring will be implemented by our contract to contractor, and it'll be in compliance with town noise restriction requirements. Contractor will submit plans showing noise monitor locations for town approval. So we'll have that in place. And lastly, how will this conveyor be powered? Details of the noise generation of the conveyor are required. So there is going to be an electrical substation at the KC Eastview site. That's part of contract 2 as well. The overhead portion of the conveyor is fully enclosed, and then noise assumptions for the analysis in the final EAS, which is table 3.13-4, includes the use of this generator. All right, variances. What is the status of Zoning Board of Appeals variances for maximum building heights at Kensico and Eastview campuses, as well as perimeter fence height and fill height over the curb at Kensico? So most of these variances, worth noting, is for the Kensico site, but a Zoning Board of Appeals application for the Eastview connection chamber at the KC Eastview site, which we were talking about earlier, will be submitted upon referral from the Planning Board. So we mentioned this during the slide, but the NYC Public Design Commission granted final approval for this Eastview connection chamber in June of '24. And then as part of contract 3, a variance application for the perimeter fence height and the height of the KEC screen chamber at Kensico, not Eastview, will be submitted as part of contract 3 site plan application. And clarification of proposed fencing is required. It is noted that the fencing at Kensico campus is proposed to exceed the 6-foot maximum height requirement, which requires a variance. In response to this application, we're noting that the KEC Eastview site has an existing perimeter fence. The northwest corner of the site is currently surrounded by a chain link fence that will remain upon completion of the project, and the area along Walker Road south of the existing entrance and police booth contains a cable fence. A construction fence will be put in place for the duration of the construction, but upon restoration, that construction fence will be removed and the cable barrier fence will be restored. All right, I think that's all our questions. So any other questions?
Okay, thank you, and thank you for going through that material. Any questions or comments from board members?
Yes, what are we supposed to do with this tonight? This presentation was very similar to the one we had in March, with some supplemental information and responses to the questions that you've received. But what's happening tonight?
So I think what's clarified is we're now separated from the Kensico work from the Eastview work. So now we're focusing on, which is very confusing, the contract numbers and the phases of the project. DEP has made it as hard as possible for us to understand what they're doing. But when they were previously, before we had the entire project, we finished the Kensico property and now we're focusing on the Eastview property. So the next step in this is whether you're satisfied or not with their responses to the initial technical comments. The next step in this is going to public hearing.
And do we have this presentation? I don't know if I saw that in my mail.
I don't know if we
The
have this one.
responses to the questions.
We have contract one.
So if you could pass this along, we'll make sure
Yeah.
we'll get it to you.
Send this along.
Is contract 2 been advertised?
Yes,
And what is your bid opening date?
we had it on June 27th.
And who is your low bidder?
We can say that, right? All right. Well, we haven't
parent
chosen
low
them yet,
bidder.
so. Parent low bidder is Schiavone Halmar Gala. It's a tri-venture. Currently
And since it's public knowledge, what was their low bid?
doing $828 million. So, bid evaluation underway right now.
So, almost $1 billion.
Almost $1 billion. It should be done in a couple days.
Any other questions, Walter?
Sir, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go
Walter.
ahead, no,
Yeah.
first to you.
There's not much for us to say or do with this project, but I have a small comment on something that I think we can impact. I have concerns with the construction fence being up for the duration of this project and not a permanent fence or screening. Essentially this is a construction fence temporary for 10 years, which seems pretty permanent. So that is one thing that we've heard comments from the public before, and we also share their concerns that we think that that's something that should be looked at.
Yep.
I feel it's something that should be looked at.
It's actually a note on mine. Can we do better on the fence? Chain link fence is the permanent one. And can we understand, I understand that permanently it needs to be fenced, but can we do better than a chain link fence, 6-foot chain link fence?
Yeah, and screening.
Yeah, absolutely. Construction screening, and then, like we mentioned, the final intent is to just keep that secure perimeter, because that's a operation site. We definitely have a high secure perimeter fence there, so once we're all said and done, but understood about your comment regarding construction duration.
Right. A construction fence, for 10 years is almost a permanent fence. Almost a lifetime of a fence.
So,
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I have a couple comments I just want to bring up. So, I know about the federal mandate, I know we have to get a whole bunch of stuff done due to the federal mandate, but my hope is to get something out of this project and this hardship that is a win-win for the town. I'm not going to dig into too much. I may ask Mr. Stephen Cavey to bite into it. What I'm thinking is, let's look at the tree removal plan and the tree replanting plan. Let's look at pollinators. Let's look at, there has to be something that we can bite into that says, this town has endured a lot of hardship, a lot of difficulty, a lot of trucks going back and forth. There has to be something that we can bite into that makes this more palatable for the community. So that's number one. Number two, you did have a public meeting, which I did watch at the community center. Do you plan on doing that again? Another community meeting in the community center in the future? Not anytime, not this week or next week, but in the future. And the reason I say that, you guys did a good job, and I think it helped assuage a lot of the fear that was out there. So I'm not going to ask you to do it tonight, but I do want to say I did observe it. It was a good meeting, and I do think you guys did bring a lot of value to the community who had a lot of, apprehension. So I am going to ask you to think about if there's some kind of cadence of meetings as this project develops over time, because we have multiple phases coming down the road, that we periodically not just do a public hearing, which we have to do, but really get into that double-click informational session with the public so they can get those questions out to you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Noted.
And then the other thing was obviously the materials. What do we have that the public can or should have at this point? We don't have this.
Yeah, so this would be very helpful.
So this material positively needs to be posted. And this probably will be, my big thing I keep bringing up is the library. This may be difficult to have all this material. There's a lot of pages here, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to hold off on that thought, but minimally, we have to get this stuff to the site.
Yeah, the roll of drawings for this is 300 sheets.
Yeah,
It's
the library won't be happy with this.
There's a comment about security as well in the past, so I don't know if this has to do their own security department either. I could not post it on the website because of that, so I'm not sure if it's available still.
What's that again?
I'm not sure for security reasons if it's available to post on the website or put in the library. So that's why it's not on the website now.
Right, the DEP is reluctant to share a lot
Yeah.
of the details because of security issues.
Okay.
But there have been cartoonized versions of material that have been shared in the past, so there's a way to get material out that's
So-
necessary without sharing a.
Right,
industry
so then you really do need to work on that, because I want the public to come prepared and not to be new for this phase of the application. So we need to have something that's out there that I can confidently say as the chairman, we provided something to the community, so then when they came here, they were able to ask those detailed questions that they want to ask, okay? So I think that should be almost like a condition of any kind of public hearing notice that we do. Because without that material, we're not doing a disservice to the public, okay?
Yeah, understood.
Okay, I am interested in our friend and an arm of the planning board who does a great deal of work, and Steve, I think you heard my comments, Stephen, on what's the win here, if there is a win.
I'm sure there's a win here. Stephen Cabby, Conservation Advisory Council Chair. Phil and I had a discussion some months back about compensating wetlands off-site, but I know that there was some, it wasn't possible in Contract 1, and I think there was a possibility of something in Contract 3, perhaps, or 2, but the idea of actually getting some mitigation of wetlands within the town as a compensation for the disturbance of the wetlands within this site was discussed, and I don't know how far along we've gotten on that, but that was one possibility. The only other possibility for tree removal mitigation was there was a discussion about the landscaping plan on the site being adjusted with some additional pollinator plantings and native shrubs and things like that, because the initial plan and contract, this goes really back to Contract 1, was mostly lawn and flat areas that really weren't providing any habitat value at all. And I understood that there was the response to the comments was that was going to be improved. So that's the only thing that I can think of that the DEP would be considered as a mitigating offset. The question is whether off-site wetlands compensation is a possibility. But before I get answers or discussion, I just want to run through two other quick items so I can get past that. The other was that we did discuss the fencing. This goes not directly to JD's comment, but with regard to fencing, there was a comment that we had about creating an opportunity for transit for reptiles, amphibians, and small mammals, which is typical when fencing surrounds a wetlands, to have some gap underneath to provide transit. There was some response from the DEP that it wasn't going to be possible in contract 1, but would be included, or as I understood it, included in contract 1, or at least considered to be included in contract 2. And I hadn't seen whether that was in fact the case, and we're very interested in that, because surrounding the entire wetlands area with a fence that doesn't provide any gap at all is a detriment to habitat. Now, by the time we get into contract 2, whatever habitat, whatever species are on site have probably fled to the hills at that point, but that doesn't mean they don't find their way in and out, and we'd like to be able to provide some transit opportunity for small mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. And that's standard in our discussions here in any construction that's been done within a wetlands buffer. And the last thing I have is just a question on what this notion of temporary disturbance is, because I know the word is temporary, but really we're talking about, when you talk about wetlands buffer disturbance, I think we're really talking about a temporary timeline of many, many years. And I'd like to get that clarified. And lastly, I wasn't quite following, and we can have a discussion offline about this so I can get more information directly and comment more directly. But I was a little confused because there was a comment, summary rather, that suggested 100 feet of wetlands buffer disturbance or about that. And then shortly after I heard a multiple of that. So I wasn't clear about how there was one discussion of a very small amount and then a much substantially larger amount. But I don't know if we want to go into that in great detail, but I'll circle back to your comments and see if Phil has a response, and I'll stand by if you want me to continue.
Yep. Go right ahead.
Did you want to respond?
Well, you know, why don't you hold off one more second, and why don't you just wrap up your...
No, those were the three
Oh,
key
that's it,
points. It
okay.
was with regard to the landscaping plan and whether there's
Yep.
compensating
Okay.
off-site wetlands and
Yep.
the fence and an understanding
So
of the
let-
actual disturbance and
listen.
timeline.
So you hear what Steve and Mr. Cavey is telling you, and what I have said, and I think you guys also have to keep the DEP, the E part of the environmental aspect of your world important to you. And I think it should be a showcase of the DEP, this project. You're spending $1 billion or more. How do we improve the environment as a result of this project? And I think when you come to the public hearing, one of my expectations as a board member is, like, how do we highlight that, and how do we do it more than just highlight it? Because we're gonna be telling people in the public, this is what's gonna happen, but we don't focus enough on the win. And the win is good. And one of the things that this community does care about, myself included, and the board members, and certainly Mr. Cavey, is the environmental win. So if we can dig into that environmental win, and how do we showcase that and show the benefit to the community of putting up with this for 10 years or more, that's a good thing. Anything else, Stephen?
No, that's it. Did you want to get response from?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Kevin Ellenwood, Deputy Portfolio Manager, DEP. Okay, I'll start with the wetlands mitigation afterward. I don't have a full answer on that. One of the difficulties is that the mitigation of the disturbance has to be in the watershed, so the Kensico watershed. So we're limited in where we can look. And so we have selected an area, Big Peninsula, that's in the watershed, but it's just not in the town of Mount Pleasant. I'd need to lean on Phil Simmons for details beyond that. Landscaping. So the first contract, while yes, it is true, we're limiting plantings to sod and meadow mix and that sort of thing. It's strategic because in the grand scheme of things, this first phase is actually fairly short, and we're not going to have the time to establish the plantings. So that's the reason why we're deferring those longer term plantings to the second contract. And it will indeed be, we are looking for the pollinators and the native trees and that sort of thing. And then part of the contract is also for invasive species management. So that's part of our plan. Third, transit. So the proposed final fence at Kensico, so not the application we're talking about tonight, but at Kensico, includes a fence that will be on basically a 6-foot concrete apron. And we looked into Mr. Cavy's suggestion for transit for small animals, and we are going to put 6-inch high, I think 9-inch wide gaps in that skirt every 100 feet. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, so we are incorporating that into our design. You have not seen that application yet? That's a future application.
It's like doggy doors, right?
That's right. Was that all? Yeah.
I'll talk to Phil about
Okay.
understanding it. Well, the timeline on the buffer disturbance is about 10 years then?
So the disturbances we're talking about tonight are for the conveyor, conveying the muck from the shaft to the muck storage area where we'll ship it out. So it's really for the duration of that work. Yep.
I think relative to the market.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I just offer one other point to your point and
Yep.
Steve's point. So DEP, because of DEP's rules, is trying to remediate the wetland impact within their watershed. We don't care about that. They could remediate their wetland anywhere in the town outside of the watershed if we find an appropriate area. So you're not bound by their rules necessarily with respect to wetland mitigation. So they may be able to enhance their give back to us elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's, I'll keep saying it each time you come back to us, what are we going to get out of you guys? I can hear Mike McLaughlin saying, what are you going to give us, my predecessor? So really lean into that, because we're going to have a room filled here at some point when the public hearing, and you've been here, and if we have nothing to offer the community, and if it's just a small thing or a large thing, if we can offer something to the community as something to make it more palatable, it's definitely a positive thing to do. So
Okay.
think about those things, about the future public meetings in the community center. Think about one thing I will say, myself as one board member, if we do have the public hearing, we do have to have some material provided to the public before they come here. So that as well. And that's it from me. Anybody else? One more time? Okay. So we probably have everything we need to schedule a public hearing.
So we don't have a final memo from Dave, which is not uncommon. We had one of the things in terms of cadence, the DEP's meeting with staff on a regular basis. Dave has been providing comments to them throughout, so they've been hearing Dave's comments. So I would just suggest, normally there's a sign-off memo from Dave saying I'm all good.
Yep.
We don't have that yet, but I think you may want to, you could consider
Well, we've
conditionally scheduling a public hearing, and if Dave,
and I know Dave's been heavily involved with this, so I'm not all that concerned about that. If there was red flag, I think we would have known by now.
absolutely.
So with that, and that condition, as well as the condition of providing something to the public before they come here. So I would suggest to the board that if we do a condition to schedule a public hearing, 2 conditions. One would be something provided to the public before they get here that we make available online, as well as the Dave Smith comment. But that's just me as one board member. Let's see what my fellow board members think. So any thoughts or questions, again, one last time? So we have an application sitting here. We can schedule a public hearing, or we don't have to. What is the direction of the board?
I'll make a motion to schedule the public hearing
Are you going to add those 2 conditions?
with those 2 conditions.
With those 2 conditions, which is Dave Smith, as well as providing something to the public before that public hearing. We need to have something available to them. Okay, so we have a motion from JD.
Second.
Second from Walter. Okay, Walter. John. Oh, John, I'm sorry. I just went through my list. Eileen,
Aye.
JD,
Aye.
and Jim. Don't tell him that. All right, an aye from me. Okay, guys, you're good to go. We'll see you when we see you. Okay, new applications. Proposed 273 Lakeview Avenue, Kensico Cemetery Habitat Restoration, and we can get John. I don't know where he is. Oh, there he is. You do a good job hiding.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get back. New application 273 Lakeview Avenue, Kensico Cemetery Habitat and Restoration, and the development of a recreational pathway for cemetery visitors within an approximate 5-acre portion of the Kensico Cemetery parcel. Applications Wetland W24-04, location 273 Lakeview Avenue, Valhalla, New York, Kensico Cemetery. Section lot number is 117.18-1-1, Zarn R20. Owner is Kensico Cemetery. Applicant is Matthew Parisi. Engineer is Wetland Studies and Solutions Incorporated. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
You just grab the mic and state your name and who you are and why you're here tonight for the
Sure. Damien Holinski with the David Resource Group representing Kensico Cemetery. I wasn't aware that I had to plug in
You
via
do not
cord.
have to.
Yeah, so I will do my best. I have some printouts and I can give an overview of the project, and I think you guys have the plan sets hopefully sent to you, and we can always produce more.
You don't have $828 billion behind you or $1 million behind you, so we'll let that go.
Promise next time I'll get the cord.
Okay.
We're here very excited about the project. It's a 5-acre wetland habitat restoration project that Kensico Cemetery is proposing. Purely voluntary. It's not associated with any regulatory requirements, any mitigation. It's simply there's a parcel of property that has been degraded over time, and the cemetery was looking for ways to restore it from a habitat perspective. So they reached out to David Resource Group several years ago to take a look at the property, understand what the opportunities are for restoration. As part of that work, we initially undertook ecological site assessment. So we walked the site, mapped the communities within the different habitats within the area. It was highly degraded, primarily with invasive species. So no issues chemically, toxicology, it just sort of invasives had succumbed as any urban area has. So we completed over the past couple of years an invasive species treatment plan to remove the invasives, and that's in process. And now we're in the process of proposing a habitat restoration plan that involves a walkway throughout the forested area, as well as a boardwalk.
So just a detail, where in Kensico Cemetery are we
Sure,
talking?
sure. Let me see if I can, I may just walk around with the computer, because I think that'll help. So apologize. So it's on the southern end, so near the mausoleum and the stormwater pond. So just north of that.
Near Legion Drive.
Yes, is that right?
Lakeview,
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Is it near Legion or Lakeview?
Right, those are Legion.
Those are the new pond.
The new mausoleum.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to contextualize.
Sure, yeah, thank you. And as you, I'm going to do this because I apologize, but I think it's effective. Running through the site is a stream that exits from the stormwater pond from south to north.
Yeah.
Right, and that particular section is sort of a valley. Right? So it drains water and a stream runs through it. And there's wetlands that surround the stream. Almost the entirety of the forested area are wetlands. And as a result, the paths that we're proposing to do, as well as the boardwalk, fall within wetlands. So we're submitting a wetland application to the township to get permission to impact the wetlands in a minor way. The path is a wood chip path that we're proposing to do a walkway to get the public in there. And that's roughly 3,500 square feet of impacts. It's a 4-foot wide wood chip path. The wood chips are primarily to keep people on the path, so sort of aligned in the direction we want them to go as opposed to going off into the woods. And then the boardwalk is through the emergent wetland area to give people in the public a kind of eye-level view of the restoration that happens and sort of immerse the public into the wetlands that were restored. And that boardwalk is about 260 linear feet and 1,000 square feet of impact. So under 1/10 of an acre overall. Go ahead, please.
So this is something, we need to probably lean into the wetland consultant.
Yes, in fact, that's exactly the case.
Yep, yep.
Sure.
So, no, that's good. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. And we received the comments on Friday that one of the questions was sort of what were the potential impacts to the wetland ecology? And as I mentioned earlier, we did a whole site assessment, so we have baseline conditions of what the wetland conditions were prior to it and what the potential impacts would be, which, and sort of ecological opinion, they're minor, and they are sort of, we're working to improve them as part of the overall plan. And part of the restoration, so this is the whole plan, right? So the idea is to do a walkway throughout it, interpretive signage to get the public involved, understand what's happening. We'll then follow up with plantings of native shrubs, trees, herbaceous plugs, as well as seeding. So the whole site is going to get a high ecological uplift. And we want to get the public in and out of the site so they can see the conditions and understand what the opportunity, the restoration that occurred on the site.
Okay. And I am going to want to introduce you to Stephen Cavey.
I've spoken.
You've met. I should have.
Yes.
I should have known. All right. So, because I see the symbiotic relationship that should go on. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members?
The area that you're proposing to restore, is that as a wetland prohibited from being used as grave sites?
Yes. Yes. There's no grave sites that can be within that area. No.
Any other questions? Okay.
The only other issue that I raised was the potential of compliance with our floodplain requirements. If there's any fill, if there's any displacement of flood storage, we need to know about that. You're doing some work with the wear of the pond, so how that relates to our floodplain protection law needs to be addressed as well.
So, yes, and I did have one comment. I have to say,
Sure.
Kensington Cemetery forever has been very generous with people walking around, and myself included occasionally. I live in that area, so I think this is, when we talk about win-win for the community, this is an example of a win-win. So when you do your presentation, I suggest if we do get to public hearing, showcase it as a win-win. This is how the town will benefit by this, and I can see your enthusiasm already that you think this is a good project. So thank you for bringing that here tonight. With that being said, I don't think we have much more to say. Stephen, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple comments. You received our letter with our detailed comments, the board, planning board?
I didn't see that.
I don't think I got that.
Well, that's,
Yeah,
the board didn't,
We haven't seen it, Steve.
we have seen.
oh, okay, all right, well, I'm not going to go into, I didn't print out a summary of it, but I'll.
We'll get it, and we will read it.
Right. Look, this is a potentially very valuable improvement to what I understand is degraded wetlands. What I'd like to do, just in brief, is work with the applicant and the wetlands consultant, set up a time for a site visit so that the CAC can look at the site and understand more clearly what we're looking at. I didn't do the site visit independently. I wanted to do it in conjunction. So that's one thing. The other is there are some concerns that I outlined in the letter, but you don't know now. But I will tell you that the question of method and material for the boardwalk is a concern, and I had discussions with a variety of other environmental groups, and there were mixed feelings about boardwalks in wetlands and whether and if they're appropriate and to what extent the materials and impacts might create disturbances. But I think if the wetlands consultant can be brought in on this, if there's a way to do this without extreme disturbance, then there's value there. What I did suggest is that there may be a possibility that the impact of the boardwalk itself may be want of a better word, bridge too far. That the trail around the site and some other modest encroachments into the wetlands might be a possible alternative, depending upon what the wetlands consultant says. We just need to be careful in how we create an approval on this, because we are talking about disturbance within a wetlands that the code really doesn't particularly approve. There's nothing that guides us on this, and so we're really creating our own process, and we want to be sure that whatever we do is done so it doesn't create an impetus for other types of less well-developed encroachments and wetlands disturbances, and it's done with a minimum. The mantra here is first do no harm. So, and for the most part, that's what the applicant is seeking to do. The idea of an already degraded wetlands being improved with invasive management and planting of natives. And I understand from my discussion with the applicant is that this is going to be a model to see how this can be replicated in other areas, other cemeteries and other sites. So we're excited about being part of that, but we just want to be clear that we're not heading down a road that creates more unintended consequences. That's what we're looking at. I'd like to just understand more clearly what the habitat assessment was, because I couldn't actually see it directly in the documents that were provided.
Because it wasn't included.
Okay, all right, so,
We can add it after the fact.
all right, because it's stated that there's no valuable habitat there, but I'd like to see what the, and I don't know that we need an outside consultant to do it. It may be that the wetlands consultant can take a look at that and be satisfied that the assessment is reasonable. The other, I know that in your application, you're seeking to do this in the next few weeks. I don't know whether the approval process is going to be that rapid, and in part of that, the timing is also critical in how it's done, so that we're not intruding and creating disturbances during nesting and egg laying. So there's a variety of interests here that need to be met. But in general, I agree, Mr. Chairman, that there's a lot of very positive elements to this. A lot of the ways in which the application has been presented in our review really were clearly sensitive to the issues and concerns that environmentalists would have, that a CAC would have. So I'd like to say that, you know, that moving forward, I think we can probably get to a really good outcome that may be exactly what they're looking for, but there may be some modifications.
I mean, the one good thing that wasn't mentioned was if the public is immersed in this environment and educated through the signage and all of that, that is definitely a good byproduct. Because I think one of the ways to really benefit the environment is by educating the public, and I think that may be a good model to get people in there to say, this is an example of how we can do it, and they can start thinking about their own homes, and they can start thinking about pollinators, and I mean, I put pollinators all over my house because of this board, because I've learned about it through here. Yeah. So that's one good byproduct.
No, I agree, Mr. Chairman. And in fact, it's unfortunate that the letter didn't get to you, because that was the concluding paragraph, that this was consistent exactly with the CAC's mission and what we're seeking to do, which is to create an educational understanding and a raising of consciousness of what environmental values are and how we can do these in our own homes. And so this would be a really wonderful model toward that. And I think that stewardship of space, cemetery space, is really important. They are one of the largest open space parcels in the town, the variety of cemeteries. So having a partner that looks to create habitat values and restoration is a really positive step. So,
no, thank you,
yeah,
as always. Okay, so I guess the main question we have for tonight, the decision that we need to make, is what do we do with this application? Are we ready for a public hearing or not?
We're not yet, Mr. Chairman. What I would ask you to do tonight is have a motion to retain a wetland consultant.
Oh, that's right. I jumped ahead.
Yep.
All right. So we need a motion to retain a wetlands consultant.
So moved?
Motion from Eileen.
Second.
Second from JD. Walter.
Aye.
John. Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Aye for me. Okay, that's done. And there's nothing else to do on this tonight. So I think we're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Yes.